The delirium article I chose was titled Delirium Diagnosis Defined by Cluster Analysis of Symptoms versus Diagnosis by DSM and ICD Criteria, Diagnostic Accuracy, and it was a study conducted by Esteban Sepulveda et al., which was published in 2016. The article set to test the accuracy and validity of diagnostic criteria for delirium. The purpose of the study was to determine if there was a better and more thorough method of diagnosing for delirium. It set out to prove that delirium is best diagnosed by using a cluster analysis to rate the symptoms and signs listed in the DSM, editions 3 revised through edition 5, and the International Classification of Diseases by the World Health Organization, edition 10. The researchers argued that cluster analysis was a better diagnostic tool because it is based on shared symptoms of patients with similar characteristics and other diagnoses. It employs an agnostic approach to categorizing delirium based on its phenotypical features. The cluster analysis was to determine which diagnostic system was the most accurate and valid. The researchers also used the Delirium Rating Scale, revised 98, to rate the severity of symptoms on each system. Its criteria were created based on the observable symptoms and is not a diagnostic system. The researchers tested 200 patients in a skilled nursing facility. The study was conducted to determine which set of diagnostic criteria works best in diagnosing delirium, specifically in co-occurrence of neuropsychiatric disorders, especially dementia. Not all patients were diagnosed with dementia. They specifically selected dementia patients from the sample to test the complexity of the diagnostic criteria. The sample was evaluated by 3 separate researchers with different specialized areas of research in respect to diagnosis of delirium. The results indicated that a cluster analysis was able to categorize the sample into 2 categories, delirium and non-delirium. The non-delirium group was determined based on the Delirium Rating Scale, revised 98, which measures the severity of delirium symptoms. The non-delirium group scored low on the DSR-R98 scale, thus not meeting enough criteria to be diagnosed with delirium. There was very little overlap in the severity of symptoms for the delirium group and the non-delirium group, indicating that the results were statistically significant when assigning patients to one of the groups. Symptoms of delirium were divided into 3 main categories: cognitive, circadian, which means it recurs naturally within a 24-hour cycle, and higher order thinking. Each system tested for symptoms that fall into those categories. None of the diagnostic systems actually test for all 3 domains. Reliability of each system is lowered with comorbid illnesses, and specific diagnostic items had to be removed from each system in order to increase the reliability of each. The results also indicated that 117 patients had dementia. These patients were older, had co-occurring main diagnoses that followed the initial diagnosis of dementia. These patients also had previous incidents of delirium. Only 83 patients did not test for dementia. Out of the 200 patients, 49 were diagnosed as having delirium and 151 did not have delirium. The study concluded that the DSM-5 had the most reliable diagnostic criteria for delirium, while the DSM-3 revised had the best accuracy for diagnosing delirium. In general, all diagnostic systems, the DSM, all editions, and the ICD, were able to accurately distinguish between delirium and non-delirium patients. The ICD-10 was the least reliable diagnostic system. It became harder to diagnose for delirium, and the systems become less reliable when delirium and dementia are tested in patients, specifically because they share symptoms, which can make it hard to distinguish between the two, especially when certain criteria has to be dismissed in order to increase the reliability of each diagnostic system. The researchers concluded that diagnostic criteria for delirium needs to be improved in order to establish a basic reference standard for diagnosing delirium. So there aren't a lot of national resources on delirium. The 3 I were able to find to be the most valid and had the best information was the ICUdelirium.org website, which is a resource that's sponsored by the Vanderbilt University Medical Center, and it is there to help families understand and cope with a family member that has delirium and may be in their intensive care unit. The second one is the American Delirium Society, which is a resource and organization that contributes to the scientific research and education on delirium, and I inserted the link for the website. And then there's the Vancouver Island Health Authority, which just has general information about delirium in the elderly, especially if they have co-occurring dementia.